I have been sitting on this lesson for more than 2 years. So this lesson is, I'm not going to claim it as Dan Anthony's private interpretation, but I didn't receive this from anyone else. This was one of those bolt of lightning moments, and I do think we're going to cover a clue today that's important. Another piece of the puzzle. Remember when we looked at the book of Revelation, there were time statements at the beginning and at the end that we said, well, those are the edge pieces of the puzzle, right? The easiest things to see. And so let's use those time statements to build the border. And those time statements were shortly, at hand, near, quickly, shortly come to pass. Right? And so then we said, okay, if we have that border, then everything in the inside of that puzzle, in the inside of the book, has to go within that border. It needs to be in that time frame somewhere. Well, here's another piece of that puzzle that a lot of folks try to grab and put into our future. They pull it outside of the border, and they want to put it into present day. But I just want to share with you another little piece of the puzzle, and let's see where it fits inside that puzzle. And I want to teach today. She wasn't wearing blue. She wasn't wearing blue, identifying the great harlot, Mystery Babylon. And that is our lesson tonight. She wasn't wearing blue, identifying the great harlot, Mystery Babylon. So we're going to take that out of Revelation chapter 17. We'll start with verse 1. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement." 2 years ago, in July of 23, I was reading through this passage, and I was actually out of state at a meeting, an anniversary service that I went to. And in my motel room, I read this. And when I read this, I shouted out loud. I read verse 4. Go back to 4. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. And I read that and I shouted out in my motel room, she wasn't wearing blue. She wasn't wearing blue. And I had an epiphany. And that's going to help us identify who this is. Before we get into that, let me just pick up verse. You don't have to turn there, Sister Anthony, but verse 1 said, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters. When we find scriptures or verses or images in the scripture, and we don't know exactly what it refers to, what is our process for identifying what the meaning of that symbolism is? Okay, so in this case, we see this great harlot is sitting on many waters. Well, what does many waters mean? Right? Does this mean that this woman lives on a houseboat? How are we going to identify, right? Well, our process is we allow the Scripture to interpret the Scripture. Imagery that we find in the Word is going to show up elsewhere in the Scriptures, and particularly Revelation. There really isn't, there's very little that is unique in Revelation. Every Scripture in Revelation has a connection to another verse in another book in the Bible. Right? It's all connected. So, waters. Well, let's look for what's an understanding of what this water means. And of course we find in verse 15, we find an understanding of this. Revelation 17:15. Then he said to me, the waters which you saw, where the harlot sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. Now we can take that, right? Because now the Scripture has interpreted the Scripture. And it's given us a key that waters refer to peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. I'll just drop this tidbit to you. If that's the case in the book of the Revelation, is it possible that it's also the case in the Genesis? Right? In Genesis we find a tree of life. In Revelation we find a tree of life. So if we find many waters, and the many waters actually symbolize peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, is it possible that we can use that as a key of understanding? Therefore, when we turn to Revelation chapter 1, and we see in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of what? The deep, the waters. So we get an image of waters that are covered in darkness, and there's chaos and confusion. Without void, without form and void, and darkness is on the face of the deep. Well, what if we were to then take this key that waters are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, and say, okay, is it possible that what we're seeing in Genesis chapter 1 is a sea of humanity? And that this sea of humanity has darkness on it, and it's in chaos and confusion. The sea of humanity is in darkness. And out of the sea of humanity, God then separates, He elevates something which He calls dry ground. But He lifts something out of the sea of humanity a little higher, and that becomes a separated group of people, nation, tongue, multitude, and they become this thing. So is it possible that the deep that's in Genesis 1 is actually peoples, and that the dry ground that was separated could have been the sea of humanity, and dry ground is in reference to a group of people who have now been elevated out of the sea of humanity? That changes the way that we read Revelation. And it actually starts to make a little more sense when we read it that way. Instead of God telling us, this is how I created planet Earth, what if it's God saying, this is how a covenant group of people came into being. This is how I created a covenant. So that's just a tidbit. All right. We're back to identifying the great harlot, Mystery Babylon. I've heard a lot of speculation about Mystery Babylon, the great harlot. I'm sure you have. Let me know. What have you heard? Who is Mystery Babylon, the great harlot in Revelation chapter 17?
Catholic Church.
Catholic Church.
Yes.
Anybody else heard any other thing? All right, so there's the idea that Mystery Babylon, the great harlot, is the Roman Catholic Church. I've heard that it is the end time religious economic system, the one world government. This is Mystery Babylon. I've heard that Mystery Babylon is America. I've heard that Mystery Babylon is modern Israel. Okay, so then let's allow the Scripture to interpret Scripture. If we're going to discover who Mystery Babylon is, the identity, we should allow the Scripture to interpret. Right? Instead of saying, let's turn to our newspaper, the way folks are doing right now. How many of you have heard that Donald Trump is the Antichrist?
Yeah.
He just made a peace treaty between Israel and Hamas, and many Arab nations were involved in this. And I've got friends that are saying, well, this looks like the Antichrist. When they say peace, peace, sudden destruction.
I remember when they said Carter was the Antichrist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because his name fits 666.
I remember, yes, I know. If we look at the front page of the newspaper, we can come up with a lot of different antichrists.
Right. Yeah, and with him coming and putting all the soldiers and everything going in and trying to, you know, that it's the one nation, that all of this is the forming of another one nation.
The one world government.
Yeah, one world government.
Absolutely.
Even had head wound.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that. Yes, he had the head wound, right? He recovered from the head wound.
Great head wound.
Yes. Yep. All right, so then let's look and see. And I'm not going to belabor this, but let's move through it. Isaiah chapter 1. If we're going to allow the Scripture to interpret the Scripture, then let's look at what the Scripture says. We're trying to find the identity of Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, this great harlot. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1. This is the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. So Isaiah gets this prophecy, and it's dealing with who? It's dealing with Judah and Jerusalem in the days of these kings. So what we see in Isaiah chapter 1 deals with Judah and Jerusalem. Go down to verse 21 of Isaiah 1. How the faithful city has become a harlot. So in Isaiah, Jerusalem is now listed as what? How the faithful city has become a harlot. It was full of justice. Righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers. So in Isaiah chapter 1, Isaiah calls Jerusalem, who used to be the faithful city, she's now become the harlot. And then we see this idea that it used to be full of justice, but now righteousness used to lodge there, the dwelling place of righteousness, but now it's the dwelling place of murderers, right? Who lives and resides within Jerusalem, okay? Revelation chapter 18. This is still in the Babylon the Great, Mystery Babylon, great harlot. Now an angel is coming in verse 1, crying. Verse 2, he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. So Revelation 18, we see this idea that Babylon the Great, who is the harlot, has fallen and has become the dwelling place of demons. Well, Isaiah chapter 1 gave us a city. Jerusalem, who used to be the faithful city, is now the harlot and used to be the dwelling place of righteousness. Righteousness used to lodge there, and now it's become the place of murderers. Is it possible that what John is seeing in Revelation is connected to what Isaiah was seeing in his prophecy? Is it possible? Well, we're looking for clues. We want to find the identity of this mystery Babylon, this great harlot. Right? So he says, this has become the dwelling place of demons. This is an allusion to the common opinion, which was widely held, that demons were these hairy goat creatures who walked on 2 feet like a man, and they inhabited the barren wilderness desert places. Right? So now we're seeing this Babylon the Great, whoever she is, has become the dwelling place, right? And there's this common idea. Now, do we really believe that goat creatures that walked on 2 feet actually went and started living inside this city, the dwelling place? Do we believe that it became a prison for every foul spirit and a cage for every unclean and hated bird? Was that literal? Probably not. It's probably some symbolism. Okay. Let's continue exploring the mystery Babylon the Great, mother of harlots. Back to verse 17, or chapter 17, verse 4. This was what set it off for me. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And I read that, and I shouted out. She wasn't wearing blue. And what I recognized was, this was almost verbatim the attire of the priesthood. So let's go to Exodus chapter 28. This is God giving Moses the instructions for Aaron and the priesthood. And here's their garments. They shall take the gold, blue, purple, scarlet thread, and the fine linen. And they shall make the ephod of gold, blue, purple, scarlet thread, and fine woven linen artistically worked. Right, remember, this woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adored with gold and precious stones and pearls. Exodus, we've got blue. And I remember this from a Bible lesson that my pastor preached in Titusville when I was a child. I remember him preaching about the priestly garment, and he made a big point of blue. And it stuck with me. So when I read that, she's not wearing blue. And I went back and I checked this out. This is where I ended up. Again, this priestly garment. It shall have two shoulder straps joined at its 2 edges, and it shall be joined together. And the intricately woven band of the ephod, which is on it, shall be of the same workmanship, made of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. Then you shall take 2 onyx stones, and engrave them with the names, engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel. 6 of their names on one stone, and 6 names on the other stone, in order of their birth. With the work of an engraver in stone, like the engravings of a signet, you shall engrave the 2 stones with the names of the sons of Israel. You shall set them in settings of gold. You shall put the 2 stones on the shoulders of the ephod as memorial stones for the sons of Israel. So Aaron shall bear their names before the Lord on his 2 shoulders as a memorial. And you shall also make settings of gold, and you shall make 2 chains of pure gold like braided cords, and fasten the braided chains to the settings. That's the attire of the high priest. Repeatedly, we saw in those instructions, scarlet, purple, and blue, and gold, and precious stones. Right? That's what we see. Let's consider, and here's the aha moment. We're trying to identify Mystery Babylon. Well, she's dressed suspiciously like the high priest, except she does not have blue. Every other thing, she looks like the high priest. She looks like the priesthood with the exception of blue. Well, let's find out the purpose of blue. Numbers chapter 15, verse 38. Speak to the children of Israel. Tell them to make tassels on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a blue thread in the tassels of the corners. And you shall have the tassel. What color is this tassel?
There you go.
You shall have the tassel, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord to do them, and that you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined.
Oh, wow.
That you may remember to do all my commandments and to be holy for your God.
Oh, wow.
The significance of blue was, this is a reminder of the commandments of God. And when we look on the blue tassels, and to this day, the Jews, Orthodox Jews, have blue tassels that hang down. Now they're making them longer and longer. When I was in Israel, you can see that some of them are dragging on the ground. They want everybody to know, we remember the commandments of the Lord our God, and we're following them. We're super righteous, very holy. And everybody can see how holy I am. My tassels are dragging on the ground. The woman, the great harlot, Mystery Babylon, had the attire of the priesthood without the blue. And the significance of the blue was, verse 39 again, and you shall have the tassel that you may look upon it, the blue thread, right? Verse 38, put a blue thread in the tassels of the corners, and you shall have the tassel that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord to do them, and that you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined, and that you may remember to do all my commandments and be holy for your God. So in this Mystery Babylon, we see a priesthood that looks the part. Every bit looks the part. But they failed to keep the commandments of the Lord. They started following after the harlotry of their own heart. And they did not remember to do his commandments or to be holy to their God. So we see a picture of a priesthood that's still playing the part, but was fully corrupted and not truly following and obeying the commandments of God. This is if we allow Scripture to interpret Scripture. She wasn't wearing blue. Okay, now let's look at the end of the great harlot. The reason I'm sharing this tonight is, if the Roman Catholic Church is Mystery Babylon, well then her destruction is still in our future.
Yeah.
Right? If the one world government is Mystery Babylon, then that's still in our future. If America is Mystery Babylon, that's still in our future. Because she's going to come to an end. She's going to be destroyed. Well, if Mystery Babylon is any of these things, then that she's still in our future. But what if Mystery Babylon was not something that's in our future? All right, let's allow it. She wasn't wearing blue, so she's this priesthood that has all of the looks of the priesthood, but is not truly remembering and obeying the commandments of the Lord and being holy and separated unto God.
Yeah.
So now let's consider the end of the great harlot. Revelation chapter 18, verse 20. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. Mystery Babylon, she's fallen. She has fallen. Then a mighty angel took up a stone, like a great millstone, and threw it into the sea, saying, thus with violence the great city Babylon will be thrown down, and shall not be found any more. The sound of harpists, musicians, flutists, and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. No craftsmen of any crafts shall be found in you any more. And the sound of the millstone shall not be heard in you any more. The light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more. The voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall not be heard in you any more. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and saints and of all who were slain on the earth. Whatever Mystery Babylon is, whatever her identity is, she's somebody who in verse 20, rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. And in her, verse 24, was found the blood of the prophets and the saints, and of all who are slain on the earth. Well, what does that describe? Let's look at the Scripture. Let's allow Scripture to interpret Scripture. Luke chapter 13. We're looking for a city where the blood of prophets and saints is going to be shed. What city could this be? Luke 33. A city that's going to be avenged of the apostles and the prophets. Luke 13:33. Nevertheless, I must journey today. Jesus speaking, these words are in red. I must journey today, tomorrow, and the day following. For it cannot be that a prophet should perish outside of... Aha! Our first identifier of who this great harlot, Mystery Babylon, might truly be. In her was found the blood of the prophets and the saints. It cannot be that a prophet should perish outside of Jerusalem. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who were sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, but you were not willing. Who might this great harlot be? Matthew chapter 23. Jesus said it this way in verse 34. Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men, and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify. Some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city, that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Assuredly, I say to you, all these things will come upon
this generation.
So who is Mystery Babylon? And what is the timing of her great destruction? It was within that generation. She was the one, right? Revelation 18 said, "Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her." And then in 24, "And in her was found the blood of the prophets and saints, and all who were slain on the earth." That looks suspiciously like verse 35. Back up one scripture. This is Jesus talking about Jerusalem. He said, darkness. Oh, no, he said, that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth. On you, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. The great harlot, the mother of harlots, wasn't wearing blue. She was adorned in all of the apparel of the priesthood of God, with the exception of blue. She didn't remember the commandments of the Lord to do them. Again, circling back to that, Numbers chapter 15, verse 38, "Speak to the children of Israel. Tell them to make tassels on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a blue thread in the tassels of the corners. And you shall have the tassel, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord to do them, and that you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined, and that you may remember to do all my commandments and be holy for your God." If we allow the Scripture to interpret the Scripture, what is the identity of the great harlot, Mystery Babylon?
Jerusalem.
And is that Jerusalem of today?
No,
It was that first century Jerusalem,
that generation.
and she was going to fall. Jesus said, "This generation shall not pass." Does that make sense, church? One more little piece of the puzzle. I want you to be able to plug it in. It fits. It's in there. You don't have to go looking for, does Rome have 7 hills? Is that the Mystery Babylon? Is this 10 horns? Or is that the European Union? You don't need to look at all that. It's got to be within that corner, within that border, right? All right, any questions, comments, input?